The desert night was silent until the sky tore open. A streak of white fire slashed across the stars above Nevada's Mojave Wilderness. It wasn't a meteor. Meteors don't change course mid-fall. This one pivoted slightly, like it was aiming. Dr. Corin Mace stood on the observation deck of an old research station, a coffee gone cold in his hand. He saw it descend in slow arc, bright enough to cast shadows, silent enough to chill him. It struck 4 miles out, near Black Cinder Ridge. No explosion, no seismic impact, just light, and then nothing. The crash site smelled of ozone and scorched sagebrush. Corin, dressed in black tactical gear from his former life, moved cautiously over the rise. The desert was quiet, but not dead. His breath hung faint in the cooling air. Then he saw it. Not a crater, a cocoon, a perfect circle of scorched stone and fused glass, 20 meters wide. And in the center, a woman, naked, kneeling, hair cascading over her shoulders, completely untouched by fire. Her skin glowed faintly. She looked up as Corin approached. Her eyes, silver, backlit from within, held no fear, no language, no recognition, only a single whispered word. Orionn. And then she collapsed. Later, under fluorescent lights in a remote clinic, Corin watched her chest rise and fall. Her vitals were wrong, heartbeat irregular, temperature low, but her body had no injuries. Her DNA scan returned 96% human and 4% unknown. She wore only one item, a pendant around her neck, impossible metal. Cool to the touch despite the desert. It had no clasps, no seams, and glowed when he touched it. He leaned over her, puzzled. "Who are you?" The woman's eyes flickered open for a moment, and behind them, galaxies turned. She didn't panic when she woke. No confusion. No fear. Just stillness. The woman sat upright in the clinic bed, her silver eyes sweeping the room. Machines around her flickered. Monitors surged with irregular spikes. An EKG monitor flatlined, then rebooted. The nurse on duty nearly dropped the tablet. Dr. Corin Mace stepped in, carrying a data pad. He froze when he saw her awake. "Good morning," he said cautiously. "Can you speak?" She blinked once. Then, "You are Corin Mace, doctor, former combat triage, Sector 5 evacuation protocol. You have grief in your memory field." He stared. "How do you know that?" Her expression didn't change. "I feel it." He crossed the room, glancing at the pendant around her neck, still glowing faintly, still unreadable by any scan. "What's your name?" he asked. She tilted her head. "I don't know." "You said a word at the crash site." "Orionn." She nodded slowly. "It's important, I feel it. But I can't reach it." He sat beside her. "Do you remember anything before last night?" She looked out the window. "The sky," she whispered. "And falling." Just then, every light in the clinic dimmed. Sparks flew from one of the nearby wall panels. A monitor exploded in static. Her body glowed, barely perceptible. A soft shimmer under the skin. The pendant flared once, then projected a 3D lattice into the air, rotating star coordinates, unknown constellations, labeled in no human language. Corin stood slowly. "What the hell are you?" She looked up at him, not unkindly. "I think I used to be something else. But I wanted to become this." The storm came without warning. Rain in the Mojave was rare, violent when it came. It fell in sheets that turned sand to slurry and flooded old trails like veins opening in the earth. Corin had taken Aeris, her name now chosen from an ancient language in the pendant's interface, to a safe house outside the town. The news had begun to stir. Satellites picking up anomalous readings, whispers of unregistered orbital entries. It was only a matter of time before others came looking. She stood in the rain, barefoot on cracked concrete, face tilted to the sky like it was something she'd forgotten how to feel. Water traced her cheeks. Her silver eyes flickered. "Do you remember anything?" Corin asked from the doorway. "I don't remember facts," she said softly. "But I remember feeling. Falling was quiet. the sky looked like it was made of skin. She took a shaky breath. I remember love. I remember breaking. Lightning flared. She didn't flinch. Her hands twitched, as if trying to pull something from the air. Then she collapsed. Corin ran to her. Her skin was cold, unnaturally. So. He lifted her, carried her inside, his arms shaking not from weight, but from something else. As he laid her down, her pendant pulsed. She whispered a word in a language he didn't understand. Tavren. And with that, the pendant activated again. The room filled with light. Corin's eyes widened as star maps scrolled across the walls. In the center, Earth, surrounded by hundreds of alien glyphs. And a blinking phrase in English: observation failed, memory interface damaged, secondary mission, await judgment. Aeris woke suddenly and said one thing, clear as sunrise. They're coming. At dawn, the quiet town of Arcton Flats stirred to life. Trucks rolled out, neon signs buzzed in diners, and desert dust hung in slow spirals across the valley roads. No one noticed the black vehicle that arrived without sound. It slid into town, like it belonged, coated in matte armor, its surface absorbing sunlight rather than reflecting it. Inside sat a man in a charcoal suit, immaculate, still, inhumanly precise. His skin was too perfect. His eyes, hidden behind mirrored lenses, didn't blink. They called him the Warden. He stepped out onto the main road. The heat warped the air, but his coat didn't flutter. He walked with measured grace toward the sheriff's office. Inside, Sheriff Kale grumbled about satellite interference. His radio popped. He looked up. The door didn't open. It dissolved. The Warden entered, wordless. His presence killed every electronic in the room. The sheriff reached for his sidearm. It lifted from its holster. Not by hand. By force. The Warden raised one finger. The gun twisted in midair, imploded like glass under pressure. You received contact, he said, voice low, toneless. You're no longer needed. The sheriff screamed, then stopped. Outside, no one noticed. Miles away, Aeris sat up with a start. She clutched her chest. They're here. Corin looked up from a data slate. Who's here? Not my people, she whispered. One of them, the Warden. He was meant to erase me if I remembered. You said they were coming. They always send him first. Corin stood. Can we stop him? Her eyes welled with silent terror. She shook her head. Slowly, we run. That night, the stars vanished behind storm clouds. The desert felt smaller, and the Warden began to hunt. They fled into the desert, where the sky held no satellites and the wind didn't carry signal. Aeris led, silent but sure-footed, guided by something deeper than memory, instinct encoded into her blood. Corin followed, flashlight flickering. He had grabbed only essentials: a backup power cell, emergency rations, and Aeris's medical files, though he suspected Earth science had little to say about her. They arrived at an abandoned observatory long since stripped by scavengers. Its dome, cracked and sun-bleached, leaned like a bent knee against the stars. Aeris stepped inside. The moment her feet crossed the threshold, her pendant flared, casting sharp blue light across the curved walls. Dust spiraled in the beam. Approached the old telescope mount and ran her fingers over it. Something clicked. A hidden panel opened. Inside, a crystalline socket perfectly shaped for the pendant. Corin stepped back. What is this place? A relay, she whispered. My backup. This is where I was supposed to remember. She inserted the pendant. The room bloomed in light. Starfields enveloped the dome. A full three-dimensional map of the galaxy rotated above them. But this, time, it wasn't centered on Earth. It was centered on her. Dozens of nodes connected to her coordinates, all labeled in alien script. A voice echoed. Not hers, not Corin's, but hers. Designation: Aeris Vanae, Class 6 Observer. Primary protocol: document Earth's social, ecological, and psychological potential for inclusion in the unified mind. A flicker of a woman appeared in the projection, taller, regal, identical to Aeris, but colder, her posture rigid, her voice synthetic. Interruption logged, emotional interference, memory wiped, judgment postponed. The image shimmered, became Aeris again, her current self, eyes full of emotion. I chose not to return. I chose to stay. Corin stepped forward. You were supposed to, what, spy on us? Aeris shook her head. No, she said. I was supposed to decide if you were worthy to survive. She turned to him, tears glinting. But I didn't want to judge. I wanted to feel. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, something ancient received the signal. The judgment had begun. The observatory dimmed, not from power failure, but because the projection had ended, and in its wake, silence returned. A silence thick with meaning. Aeris stepped away from the telescope mount, her hands trembling. Her face, usually calm and enigmatic, now trembled with something unmistakably human. Fear. Corin approached slowly. What does it mean? Judgment? By who? Aeris sat against the wall, drawing her knees close. Not by gods, not by soldiers. By the mind. He frowned. You said Earth was being tested. She nodded, voice hollow. That's what I thought. That's what they told me. She looked up. But Earth isn't the test. I am. Corin sat beside her. Explain. The observers are seeded throughout galaxies. We live as you do. We learn. But we are watched. Not to see if you survive us, but if we can live among you without choosing attachment. Emotion corrupts the unified mind. Corin leaned back, trying to absorb it. You fell in love with Earth. I forgot who I was to remember why I came, but I failed the protocol the moment I chose to stay. She held up the pendant. It pulsed faintly now. They sent the Warden not to stop you, but to kill me. Before I choose anything. Corin stood. Then we run. Farther. But Aeris didn't move. They're not just coming for me, they're coming for the result. My memories, my feelings. If I don't surrender them, they'll destroy the node I've seeded into this world. Corin blinked. Node? Her fingers touched her chest. I've grown roots here, she whispered. In every connection. In you. She looked at him, eyes wet, glowing. If they erase me, they erase what Earth meant, and it will never have mattered. Thunder rolled in the distance, but it wasn't a storm. It was something descending. The Warden was near. The wind died. No birds, no insects, no sound, just a stillness that cracked the world in half. Corin and Aeris stood at the canyon edge, an ancient Martian-seeming gorge of jagged red stone carved by time. Below them, silence. Above them, the clouds churned without rain. Then came the hum. Low, metallic, like steel vibrating inside a magnetic field. A black figure walked into view across the opposite ridge, tall, precise, death in a suit, the Warden. His coat never moved, not even as the wind pulled at the rocks. His hands were bare, pale, flawless, his eyes still hidden behind mirrored lenses that reflected not just light, but memory. Return the observer, he called across the void, his voice echoed unnaturally, like it was spoken through every rock. Corin raised his weapon, an old sidearm from another war. Aeris didn't move. I won't go, she said, stepping forward. I've chosen. The Warden tilted his head. Emotion is deviation. Deviation is threat. Threat must be silenced. He raised his arm, and gravity bent. The canyon twisted around them. Rocks lifted from the ground. Corin dropped to his knees, crushed by invisible weight. His sidearm floated upward, then cracked in half. Aeris screamed, not from pain, but memory. Flashes hit her, a city of glass falling into the sea. A child's. Hand reaching through light. Herself, saying goodbye to 1,000 lives. The Warden stepped forward. You will be forgotten. Aeris stood, slowly, impossibly, forcing herself upright through the pressure. No. Her pendant blazed, her feet lifted an inch from the ground. She spoke a word not meant for human ears. Savrentar. The warden froze. The field collapsed. Corin gasped, free again. He crawled back as Aeris stepped into the air, hovering inches. Above the rock, her hair rising like smoke. She raised her hands. The canyon screamed. Light bent. The warden was flung backward, crashing through boulders. He didn't bleed. But he shook, and when the light dimmed, he was gone. For now. Night fell slowly over the canyon. Its silence was no longer peace. It was aftermath. The wind that returned carried the metallic tang of scorched stone. Corin sat against a boulder, holding his side, his breath ragged. The skin above his ribs was burned in a strange pattern, spiraling, like a mark left by invisible flame. Aeris knelt beside him, her hands trembling. "I didn't know I could do that," she whispered. Corin winced, managing a half smile. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." She didn't smile back. Instead, she closed her eyes and placed her hands over his wound. Her palms pulsed with faint gold light. Not heat, memory. His breath caught as warmth flowed through him. Not just healing, understanding. He saw her, not just her body, but her story. A child born from light, raised in silence, trained to observe but never touch. She had stood on 10,000 worlds, had learned languages from watching lovers speak them, had studied hope like a map, but never felt it, until Earth, until him. When she opened her eyes, he was healed, and she was crying. "I was sent to observe," she said, "to choose if your species was to ascend or vanish." Corin stared, and she reached for his hand. "I wasn't supposed to love you." He looked down. Their fingers touched. "But I did," she whispered. "And now I can't be what they want." Lightning cracked across the distant sky, blue, unnatural. A ship was coming, massive, silent, orbit straining. "The judgment," she said. "They'll give me one chance to obey, or erase me." Corin stood. "Then we run again." But she shook her head. "There's nowhere left to run." She turned to face the sky. "I have to choose." He stepped beside her. "Then I choose with you." The clouds parted, and the stars stared back. The heavens split. It began as a shimmer, like heat above asphalt, then fractured into hexagonal patterns of light. From that rupture, something vast descended. Not a ship, but a structure. Alive. Folding and unfolding in silence, as if space itself had remembered something old, the judgment vessel. It eclipsed the stars over the desert canyon. No sound, no thrusters, just gravity bowing beneath it, and time bending at its edges. Corin fell, to one knee clutching his head. "It's in my mind." Aeris stood tall, unaffected. The pendant on her chest glowed white-hot. She looked up, unblinking. "Aeris Vanay," a voice boomed. Not through sound, but through existence. "You have deviated. Your bond has corrupted observation. Confirm deletion, return memory, return form, leave no residue." A portal opened midair, lined in light like a mouth waiting to swallow. Corin cried out, "Don't!" She turned to him, eyes burning, not with fear, but conviction. "I remember now." "What?" "That I chose this, not by mistake, by desire." Stepped forward, raising her hands. The pendant lifted, separating from her body, now spinning between her palms like a sun. "This world changed me. That was not error. It was grace." The ship hesitated. "You reject the protocol. I break it." The vessel flickered, its geometry unraveling. For the first time, it felt confused. Aeris released the pendant. It dissolved into dust. The portal trembled. "You will be severed from the mind." She smiled. "Then let me be human." The ship pulsed once more, then vanished. Gone. No explosion, no sound, just absence. and Aeris collapsed. Corin rushed to her side. She breathed, barely. The light in her veins was dimming. He cradled her, whispering her name. Her lips moved. I stayed. And darkness took her. It rained again. Weeks had passed since the sky opened, since the ship left without sound, since Aeris collapsed into his arms, barely breathing, her body caught between what she had been and what she chose to become. But she survived. They told the authorities it was a test satellite, a glitch, a weather balloon gone wrong. Nobody believed it, not really, but nobody asked questions either. Corin had moved them to a remote town nestled between long-forgotten hills, where cell towers barely reached and nobody cared where you came from. He worked at a local clinic under an alias. She stayed close, learning slowly how to cook, how to laugh, how to be here. The light inside her never returned to full brightness. But sometimes when she held Corin's hand under starlight, her eyes flickered silver, and that was enough. Children in the town called her Star Angel. She never corrected them. On quiet nights, she sat beneath the porch, watching the sky as if waiting for it to open again. Corin would bring her tea, and she would tell him stories not of war, not of technology, but of worlds where rivers ran upward, and cities floated like pollen, and people could sing their emotions like colors. And then she'd grow quiet, because those memories no longer belonged to the alien who fell from the stars. They belonged to her. I fell from the sky, she whispered once, and forgot who I was. She looked at him, smiled. Then I remembered what it meant to stay.